Hey!
Hey!
Do you like facts? Good, okay, we're on the right track here. Okay, do you like fun facts?
Yes, I certainly do.
Okay, even better, now we're getting somewhere. Alright, now let me ask you this. How do you feel about Spyro fun facts? I thought so. Spyro the Dragon is a game that's no stranger to having some wacky secrets and interesting tidbits of development history that have popped up into the public knowledge over the near 25 years it's been out. Today, I'd like to go through 24 of those facts, ranging from some weird stuff that happens in-game to never-before-revealed secrets about the game's development. Ready? No? Too bad, here we go! Starting things off, it's becoming increasingly common knowledge these days that the Clifftown level was based on Tatooine from Star Wars, right?
Wrong!
I hate to rain on the parade, but this actually isn't the case. According to level designer Michael John on Twitter, the actual inspiration for Clifftown were the cliff dwellings of Mesa Verde. Keeping in line with development history, this is a doozy. We all know Spyro's original working name was Pete, but it wasn't known to me until a few days ago that Sparks' original name was actually Tombo. Yet again, this was sourced by Michael John on Twitter, who was very closely involved with the game's development from very early on. It's unknown whether or not this was a name that was intended to stick, or just a placeholder, but it's understandable that they changed it to Sparks to give the duo some alliteration. Moving on to gameplay now, this is an innocuous one. Did you know if you stand on a ledge that's just a little bigger than Spyro's height, then in the air, quickly charge, glide, then charge again and hit the ground, Spyro's head will be slightly tilted upwards? We have no idea why this happens or why he does this. Guess things are looking up for him.
Boo!
This one might make you a bit sick. In the Japanese version of the game, go to Sunny Flight and stand somewhere flat so you can look around with the triangle button. Look down and to the left and hold it there whilst you wait for the timer to run out. If you do this correctly, when you restart the flight level... I'm gonna throw up. In Ice Cavern, did you know in a very specific, select circumstance, Spyro will shiver from the cold? That's right. Except it's actually not right. Get to the end of the inner cavern at the end of the level, clear out the enemies for safety, and speak to Ragnar. Once the animation is over, leave the analog stick or D-pad alone, and notice how Spyro is shaking like he's terrified of the existential nightmare he's trapped in. This is just because he's sitting on the intersection of 4 differently angled polygons, and the game doesn't quite know which one to stand him on. Pretty cool! This is an interesting one. Do you remember in my Nesta video how I mentioned the existence of a new speedrun category called Pseudo 120%? Let me explain what makes it so pseudo. In Nasty's Loot, the game is constantly checking for you to have 12,000 gems gathered from the rest of the game. Once it sees you have 12,000 gems, the next 2,000 you get inside of Loot will bring your completion percentage total up to 120, even without the eggs and dragons. By skipping into Nasty's Loot with only the required 50 dragons, 5 eggs, but the 12,000 gems, you can 120% the game without the intended collectibles and even trigger the 120% ending cutscene. This one's pretty simple, and might even save your life in your next playthrough or speedrun. We all know if you land in flight level water, the round is over and you're forced to restart. But if you charge into flight level water, you can jump out. Be careful though, just because Sparks isn't there doesn't mean you're invincible. You can do this 3 times before you die, even though it won't actually take a life. Keeping on trend with water, did you know water from a flight level actually made its way into Metalhead? This little pool of water right here acts the exact same way as flight level water. If you fall or flop into it, you'll die immediately, but if you charge into it, it's safe. In Dark Passage, this pool of water here was actually never programmed to be a water tile. It's purely visual, so you can stand on this one all you like without consequence. Okay, I swear this is the final water fact in this video, but this game just has so much to hide. Did you know that by doing a wall glide into an out of bounds to enter the Toasty head from above, the very top polygon of the portal is water? Yeah, you can drown on a portal. This is the first level of the game. I lied about it being the final water fact. In Dreamweavers, directly underneath this waterfall, there's a very thin, small, safe polygon where you can stand. Be careful once you're on it though, one small slip and it's lights out. Finally, we're done with the water facts. Except no, we're not, because I needed a segue into Nasty's world. The same water polygon on top of the Toasty portal frame exists on the Nasty North portal frame too. But why? If we take a close look at the Toasty heads and the Nasty heads, we can see that the geometry, even down to the collision data, is identical, with the exception of the back of the Nasty head, which had to be added after. Here's my theory. I think Nasty's World / Nork Nexus is a developmental copy-paste of Artisans. I think during the brief window they had to whip up a 6th homeworld for the game in development, they took Artisans and pretty much nuked it with the exception of the Toasty head, then just built around that to give us Nasty's World. This would explain why the Nasty head is the only one without collision, whilst the Twilight Harbor and Nasty's loot heads have it. Those two have different designs. They were copy-pasted over and then tweaked. Then during those tweaks, the collision geometry was fixed. I guess they didn't deem the Nasty head important enough to fix? I guess they just assumed no one would ever get in there. Surely, 24 years in the future, nobody would be banging their heads against the wall desperately trying to get into that head to entertain hundreds of people every day and break world records. Surely not. No, that would be ridiculous. Let's just leave collision the way it is. No one's ever going to be dumb enough to try and get in there. No. Mental breakdown aside, let's just stay in Nasty's world for a bit. In the July 11th prototype of the game, you can see the Nork Cove and Twilight Harbor level names are swapped. Though this was likely an oversight because this was fixed just 1 week later in the July 18th build. Our last fact in Nasty's world is probably going to be a frustrating one. Do you see anything weird here? Anything at all? You don't? Well, sorry, I'm about to ruin this for you. The G and A in Nasty's world doesn't rotate with the rest of the text. We're finally out of Nasty's world, but we're not done with the heads-up display. In the PAL version, there are a few little differences in the game's HUD, such as the inventory screen being a little smaller spaciously to fit on PAL TV screens better, the rescue dragon text doesn't fully capitalize the dragon's name, and the entering level text doesn't have an ellipses at the end. Hold it! I just realized something. This was originally going to be a PAL fact, but I made a pretty startling discovery right now that I can't believe I didn't notice before. When gathering footage from the July 11th / LX Shadow build of the game, I noticed that the long-distance, low-quality version of the Nasty head had peculiar coloration. Brown and green! Exactly like the Toasty head! That is the Toasty head! Did you know that on the title screen for the PAL version, for some ungodly reason, Spyro just doesn't have teeth? Yeah.
Horrible.
Our final PAL fact for the video, even though it really applies to both regions. In NTSC, Ajax doesn't have any mouth texture at all. His skin goes all the way into his mouth. Ew. In PAL, this was finally fixed. In Dry Canyon, if you free Boris at a very specific position, Spyro's walk around to his part of the animation ends up walking him through the floor into the death barrier. But because you're invincible during dragon cutscenes, the cutscene plays out. And, well, I'll just show you what that looks like.
You are a good glider, eh, Spyro?
I was born to glide.
That was cool.
In the LX Shadow prototype of the game, Dreamweavers is holding a very peculiar kind of gem that we never got to see in any other build or version of the game. Hidden on some since-removed geometry and dubbed by LX Shadow as the Mother Gem, once you collect it, more gems spring out as if it were a locked chest. I think this is a super cool feature, but it makes sense to remove it since it only makes its debut so far into the game. This is one I'm very surprised people didn't pick up on sooner. Because Spyro's gameplay model can't be used for the dragon cutscenes, it's hidden and swapped out for a unique cutscene version of Spyro that actually has a few differences to his gameplay model. You can see his cheeks and snout have an odd yellow tint to them, and overall he's just a little chunkier. You can see it switch back to the gameplay model on most of the dragon cutscenes that end looking at Spyro. In the earliest available playable demo / prototype of this game, dubbed the Tabloid demo, if you're astute, you'll notice that the geometry outside of the town square portal that speedrunners usually wall glide on is actually smoother, and gives you less available places to stand compared to the final. This leads me into the next fact that wall gliding was known about, and kept in the game as a happy little accident. According to Mark Cerny in an interview with Next Generation magazine in December 1998, when asked were there any programming artifacts left in the game, not bugs per se, but more like unanticipated features, he stated, If you glide next to a wall, incline 10 or 20 degrees from the vertical and push into it with your joypad, you'll be able to glide quite a bit longer. This does not work on perfectly vertical walls. It's only a theory that the geometry outside of Town Square was changed to make it easier to skip into Toasty, but I sure wouldn't put it past them because Mark Cerny's any percent PB is 1 hour 45 minutes. In that same interview, he was asked, "Are you the best at your game?" To which he responded, "I don't know. I'm thinking of having a competition among the team to see who can finish the game fastest. I'll put up a large monetary prize, thus motivating me to practice a lot, become the best, and not have to pay out any money." What a mood, Mark. What a mood. He was then asked, "What's your best time?" He responds, "I've reached and beaten Nasty Nork in 105 minutes. If anyone can beat that, please send me your time at mark.cerny@unistudios.com.